Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Dev Marketer channel. I'm your host, J.A. Curtis, but you guys can call me Alex. And today's video is continuing our series on Vue.js fundamentals. We're covering part number 8, and in this video, we're going to talk about computed properties. Now, computed properties are very, very useful things to understand inside of Vue.js. They allow us to actually perform extremely advanced reactive data models to our object or to our Vue.js project. Okay, so basically, instead of having to constantly check and see if an item is changing or having advanced functions that, hey, when this item changes, go ahead and change these other objects or variables. When this item changes, do all that. Vue handles all of that. We just create a computed property. Any object or variable that is required for that computed property, if any of those change, the computed property constantly updates. Okay, so it's always reactive, always up to date. It just takes a lot of the headaches out of managing some of these more advanced properties you might deal with in some of your projects. Okay, let's dive in. We're going to dive into one quick, simple example, and then we're going to go into something that might not going to say it's advanced, but it will open your eyes a little bit more to some of the power that computed properties have with Vue.js. Let's get started. Okay, so diving into this, we're actually going to go through two projects here. One of them is going to be working with names, first name, last name, full name. It's a very basic example. And then we're going to go into an experience points XP example later on. So when we're starting off today, go ahead and open up the start_name project. This is where we're going to start with the first project, and then we're going to go into the start_XP project. Okay, so there's two projects in here, and they're all inside of this folder for part 8. Now, if you don't have part 8 and you have been following along up to this point, you just need to go into your terminal or whatever you're using for Git and just do a git pull to pull the newest, make sure you're on the master branch, and then pull the newest functions, and it will pull down this part 8 folder. And if you haven't downloaded any of these before, go down into the description, click the link for the GitHub link, and you can download these project files right now for free. Okay, so let's dive in. I'm just going to go ahead and assume you have the project in front of you, and I'm going to start here at the start name.html. That's where I want you guys to start today. Okay, so let's just take a look at this project. We got a basic bootstrap template. That's what all of this is up to here, so you can ignore all of that. Now we've got our div with an ID of app, and everything inside of here is going to be our Vue.js application, right? Inside of here, we basically just have, it's a very basic layout. We're using some rows and columns. Let's just open this in the browser to show you what we're working with. Okay, so this is what we got this is what we're basically working with. What we want to do in this project is we're going to basically bind our input over here for the first name to an object called first name, right? And we're just going to display that here just so you can kind of see it. And then our last name, we're going to output that to an object for last name. Pretty basic stuff. But then what we want to use is we want to learn about computed properties by creating a first name and a last name, by creating a full name object that we can use. So we can just pull the full name out, and that will be the compilation of first name and last name put together. But the beauty of it is that we want it to update. If we change the last name, we want the full name to update. If we change the first name, we want the full name to update. We want to be able to update it no matter what object's changing. The full name always needs to be up to date. And that way we can just always call this full name object over here when we say hello. Okay, that's what we're going to be working on today. Let's get started. So first thing we need to do is we need to start with these inputs. We need to bind these inputs to objects for first name and an object for last name. So we're keeping track of those two objects first, and then we can go about worrying about the full name computed object. Let's head back over to our project and let's take a look at what we got here. If you come down here to the second row, which is right here, you can see we've got a form group for first name. We've got an input here, and then we got an input for last name. So what we want to do is we want to first of all create objects, data objects in Vue for our first name and our last name. So we're tracking those and storing those. So we initialized a Vue object here. It's all linked to the app element. Let's go ahead and now set up our data objects. We're going to do data. You guys should know all this. We're going to do first name. We're going to set first name initially equal to 0 to nothing because we don't know what it's going to be. And then last name, let's go ahead and just set it equal to nothing as the default value as well. So now we should have our first name and our last name. What we can do now is bind those up here. So when we say, when we have our unordered list over here, let's go ahead and just show off our first name so we can see the value of first name. And then let's show off the last name here so we can see the value of first and last name. Now, just so you know what those do, they're not really doing anything, but these are going to just output whatever first value is here, or first name is here, and then the last name here. That's all they're doing, okay? Now we need a way to update it, right? We wanted the inputs, right? These inputs to update that object, right? Pretty simple. So let's go ahead and do what we've been learning, which is v model, and we're basically going to tie this input to the model for first, in this case, because it's the first name. And let's do the same thing over here. V model equals last. All right. If you go back over to our project and look at what we got, you can see as we update our first name, you can see that it updates the object reactively. Nice. We update the last name. Sweet. Well, we have now our first name and our last name. Now, how do we manage a full name? What we want to do up here is we want to just say hello full name, right? That way we just automatically know the full name is always up to date, and we're asking someone for we're using their full name here as the example. Well, that's where computed properties can come in. So let's go ahead and set up our first computed property just to see how that works. And again, this is a very simple example, and we'll talk about something not advanced but just a little more complicated in the next exercise. So let's go ahead. We'll close off our data little set here, and we're going to now work with a new one called computed. Okay, and these are where all of our computed properties are. So let's create a computed property called full name so that we can output that full name up here. And now full name is going to be equal to a function, and we're just going to create a very, very basic function that returns the first name plus the last name, right? Pretty basic stuff. It's just the first name and the last name. And actually, we do need a space in the middle here. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do a space, and then, so first name, a space, and then last name. Okay? Now, what's happening here is every time first name gets updated, computed properties will update, right? So this full name will always stay into sync whether first name has changed or last name has changed. And that's the value of Vue.js computed properties, is that we don't now need to check to see if someone changed last name or if someone changed the first name in order to update this full name. It's always changed. If anything in here gets modified, any of these models get modified, the full name automatically updates. And now let's go ahead and see this in action. Just make sure now we're using full name up here. Let's make sure that we're using it up here. So we're outputting hello, and then we should display the full name. So back over in our project, let's refresh. And now what I'm going to do is type my name. You can see as I got my first name in place, our first name is equal to Alex, and it's now displaying our full name, which right now is just Alex because it doesn't have a last name. Let's go ahead and put my last name in there, and you can see as I typed it that full name was constantly staying up to date, right? If I remove any of these, it all stays up to date, right? Pretty sweet. Okay, so that's basically how computed properties work. They're pretty easy to work with, and it allows us now to have another data object or a data model, just like how we have these ones, but we can do more advanced stuff in here. Now, because this is a function, we could have done anything we wanted to it. So we could have done any sort of JavaScript functionality to create this computed property, and it would always stay up to date immediately as any of these other items change, okay? So just kind of let that sink in and start thinking about the possibilities that if you can do anything you could do with JavaScript inside of this computed property. You could perform string functions, you could perform anything, and you can even call, we're gonna do an example in a video or two where we actually go out and the computed property is actually going out to an API. So we're taking data from our data models, and we can use computed properties, and the computed property goes out to an API, gets information, comes back, and the computed property is now a modified version that's basically extracted from an API, and it's always up to date. So if we change any of these models, the computed property goes out and looks at the API again to get information back. We don't have to call that every time something changes. We just have our computed property set up, and it handles the rest, okay? So just let that sink in. These are the possibilities that computed properties brings us. We are using a simple example here, but that's the power that it has. All right, now let's stay tuned, and there's still more to this video, but I want to just jump into the next project where we start doing some more advanced functionality right after this. Okay, so let's now jump into our start_xp, okay? This is the next project we're going to have, and this project is going to be like many things you have. You might have experience points, right? As a user does something, you give them experience points or some sort of little object that stores some sort of value for them, some sort of digital currency or something like that. And we're going to modify the level of user that they are based on how many experience points they have, okay? So that's what we're going to do in this project. Go ahead and open up start_xp. It should be in your part 8 folder, and that's what we're going to dive into for this project, okay? So what we've got here, let's go ahead and just open this in the browser so you can take a look at where we're starting. Let me go to start_xp. All right, and this is basically what we got here. So it says you are and what we want to say here is an intermediate. You are a pro level. You are a noob, whatever. We want to say the level that they are, and then we want to display their current experience points, okay? When we click this add XP, we want to add experience points to their user profile. When we decrease experience points, we want to decrease all the experience points, okay? So what do we need to track? Just kind of think about this for a second. What do we need to do to get set up with Vue? All right, what are you guys thinking? We're obviously going to need experience points. We need to track experience points, okay? And we did an example like this actually a couple videos ago where we basically used some click models here, some click events to adjust our, I can't remember what we were adjusting, but it was basically to adjust a numeric value, right? So we increased or decreased a numeric value, and that's what we're gonna do with the XP. So we're gonna give ourselves XP, decrease XP, and that's gonna add or subtract from that XP model, okay? Well, then the next thing we want to do is our level is going to be basically, that's where the computed property is going to come in. The computed property is going to be the level where we basically look at the number of experience points and then determine based on those experience points whether what level this person falls into. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and look at the code and see what it takes. All right, so here we are. What we're going to do here is let's go ahead and look down at our Vue app down here at the bottom, and let's set up those models that we talked about. So we're going to set up the data models here. We're going to have XP equal to, and we'll just start it off at 10 XP. Let's say you sign in, we're going to give you 10 XP to start with, okay? So we're going to have this XP model here, and let's go ahead and just tie this in to get the XP to update. So first of all, your current XP, let's go ahead and just display that to the user. So we're going to say XP. And that should now start with 10. But then you're going to click these buttons to increase or decrease your experience points, right? So let's go ahead and do that. And you guys should remember this. This now ties in the events, right? So we want to use the click event. When someone clicks a button, we want something to happen. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to use the @ sign. That's the shortcut, remember? So on click, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to add XP, right? And on this button, when we click this button, we're going to decrease XP, all right? Now, you guys do remember from the other videos that these need to be methods, right? So we need some methods. So let's go ahead and set up the methods for these. And if this is new and you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you're just gonna wanna go down, click in the description down below, and click on the playlist for this series, and you're gonna wanna go back and look at the events video, okay? So you're gonna wanna look at how to handle events, and we talk about all this in the events. Okay, so let's go and take a look at our models. We're going to need a method, okay? Let's make a method for add XP. So we're going to do add XP. We're going to set that equal to a function. And all we're going to do here is return this .xp. We're going to take the current value of XP, and we're going to add 10 to it, okay? So we're going to do plus equals 10. That's going to add 10 experience points at a time. Every time we click the button, and this method runs, we're going to just take the current value of XP, and then we're going to add 10 to it, all right? Now let's go ahead and make another one. We're going to do decrease XP function. All right, and this time we're going to do basically the same thing. We're going to take the XP, but we're going to subtract it this time. So do minus equals 10, all right? And that's going to take 10 down from the experience points. Okay, so whenever we click this, we're going to grab the decrease XP method, which is going to subtract 10 points. Whenever we click this button, we're going to add 10 points to our experience. So let's go ahead, take a look at the project. I'm going to refresh. You can see we have our current XP at 10. Nice. Let's add, every time we click it, you can see we add 10 XP, which is awesome. Every time we click decreased, we lose 10 experience points, okay? So good, this is working really nicely. Now what we want to do is we want to know what level this user is at based on their experience points, right? So what we're going to want to probably do is set some checkpoints. So let's say if you are less than 100 experience points, you are a beginner level, okay? So if you're less than 100 experience points, you're a beginner level. If you are 100 to 200 experience points, you're an intermediate level. And if you're over 200 experience points, you're then an advanced level or a pro level, okay? So let's go ahead and set this up in here. What we're going to do now is we're going to work with our computed properties, okay? We're going to use computed properties to take a look at the XP and then determine what level a user is so we can then display that level to the user. So let's go ahead and now set up computed properties. Just like we did before, let's go ahead and set all of our computed properties, which is just one, and we're going to call this level. This is the user's level, all right? And to set level, we're going to go ahead and we're going to be doing this an if statement, right? So we're going to say if this dot XP, if the current XP is greater than or equal to 200, then we're going to return pro. Okay, so that means that they're a pro level. All right, now let's go and do an else statement. We're going to do else if this dot XP is greater than or equal to 100, then we're going to return intermediate, and then we're going to do else if this dot XP is greater than 0. You could do greater than or equal, I guess. Greater than or equal to 0. Then we're going to return beginner. And then let's do one final one that if we'll just do a final if statement. And this if statement is only going to initiate if they're negative, right? Because we're catching, right at the beginning, we look to see if they're over 200, right? And then if they are, then they're pro. Now, and then it will exit the loop. Now, let's say if they make it to the next if statement, then we know they're at least not over 200. So they have less than 200. So that's why we can just call over or equal 100 because we know that they're not 200. So that means it's between 100 and 200. And then the next one, if we're looking if they're greater than or equal to 0, we know it's really 0 to 100 or 0 to 99. And then if it's less than that, then we know they're less than 100. Okay? So if they're less than 100, we want to say that they're banned. Okay? So they've been banned from the website. So now we have this computed property called level. And this level is a string that is the level of that user. So let's come back up here and we can now say you are a, and then in the strong, we're going to say the level that they are. All right, now let's go ahead and save that and refresh our project. And you can see here right at the beginning, it says you're a beginner because we have 10 experience points. In fact, if we decrease this down to 0, they're still a beginner. They can lose a little points. But if they go below 0, then they're banned. All right, they're banned from the website. And as we increase points, let's go ahead and get them over 100. As soon as they get over 100, they go up to an intermediate level. And then as soon as they get over 200, they go to pro. All right, and you can see that if they were to juggle points here, they move from intermediate to pro just like that, okay? So you can see that this updates immediately, and you can see how easy this is. Computed properties make it so easy to manage these objects and to keep them reactive, and that's the most important point. Think about how you can keep everything reactive, and you don't need to now check every time something changes or anything like that. You can just set up these computed properties to automatically handle all the heavy lifting for you. And now we can have, for example, this level, we can just use level like it's some sort of variable and it's automatically handled by Vue, as you can see here. All right, so hopefully that's awesome. Hopefully you guys can see how the power that this brings us, and we're gonna start working on some more real life examples in the next few videos, and we'll be using things like computed properties quite a bit. Computer properties, events, and you can see as we start learning all these different elements of Vue.js, we're tying the different things into our projects. We now used event listeners and all sorts of stuff in this video that we couldn't have done until we learned that. So we're building up our repertoire of Vue.js and starting to learn how to do more advanced things with it. So stay tuned for the next few videos. We've got a couple last elements that we want to talk about, and then we're going to start learning about how to use Ajax requests and how to use it in real world projects. Okay, so hopefully you guys are enjoying this series. Be sure to stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.